Hello and welcome to the Gaming 24 edition of the FPL Scope podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Matthias, and with me today, as always, is my co-host Kevin, who is still not doing too well in FPL, despite doing a wildcard this past game week, but we are now getting into the period where our wildcards are going to really make a difference. And one of those reasons is because we have loaded up on Man United players, at least Bruno Fernandes, who is looking like the next auto captain. Potentially, it is a question if he should be the one to take the armband mostly now, rather than Haaland, who's been struggling a bit lately despite scoring now in the Champions League against Galatasaray. But yeah, as I've written there in the headline, my dad, the trendsetter, my dad started playing FPL back in the 2021 season, and back then was the season when Bruno Fernandes was at his best. And my dad had him as captain every single game week, and he's stuck to that all the way through it to this day, basically. And now we might be joining him as the guy who we captain mostly in FPL. But I don't know, where do you fall in terms of this? Like, Man United have looked really impressive now against Arsenal and Man City, beating both of them in a week. And City are looking a bit up and down. Haaland especially has been struggling lately. So what do you think when it comes to captaincy and those guys and Haaland's form? Like, do you reckon Man United are legit? Do you think Haaland is struggling? Do you think he'll be back to his best? Like, what do you reckon with the whole question between United and City and Fernandes and Haaland?
Yeah, I mean, I think United definitely have always had the squad to do better than what they've done. And I think they, like I have said a few times, that they were legit contenders for top four and seemed like they could actually pull it off. So, yeah, I think it's not an unfair assessment. And again, a lot of Man United fans will try and say that Bruno isn't their best player, which includes a close friend of ours, but he is clearly the best player. He is showing and putting up the numbers. He's not playing as a CDM for most of it under Carrick as well, which has been pretty huge for his numbers. And yeah, he might be a bit penalty dependent with goals, but I think that will change very quickly. But I also think that Holland will change very quickly. He looked better against Galatasaray, should have scored more than once yesterday, and I think it will be a tough question for managers. But considering Holland's form as of late, you're allowed to sort of venture out and sort of captain against him.
Mm-hmm.
But I would still advise to still have him in your team. But yeah, why not venture out? And I think this week is a good one, considering one team is facing Fulham at home and the other is playing Spurs away. And Spurs famously beat Man City in the previous sort of reverse fixture. So it's not, yeah, I wouldn't go against. I wouldn't hold it against someone for going against Holland, but at the same time, this could be the start of Holland's streak. So it's all relative. But I wouldn't say it's the worst week to go against him. There are some fine fixtures for a lot of players. If we get some more information, like Chelsea are playing West Ham, no offense, and you have other teams like that who have some favorable games. So it'll be interesting, but I think I'll be captaining away from him, to be honest, and I think I will be going for the man of the cover picture here. So yeah.
Yeah, that might very well be the case. And you've already tested the waters with new captains this past game week, because Haaland was leaked to not start right before the deadline, basically, like 15 minutes before the deadline. We got news that both Haaland and Foden would be benched for Man City, and you succinctly benched Haaland yourself in your FPL team, and he got 1 point, so that was a good decision from your part. You did captain Thiago, though, who blanked. He had a really big chance where he really should have had a penalty. Like, I don't think it's been talked about enough how he was just basically held back by Murillo, like, quite clearly when he had a big chance at the start of the game. So Thiago always in amongst the goals. I think he is always in dangerous positions. So I think it's a good captaincy decision still. But of course, I went with Semeni myself, who you had as vice captain. So that worked out a bit better. But on a different day, Thiago could have scored as well. But 4 points from him. 43 points overall, not the best, I guess, but you did have some nice results, at least, with Semeni with 8 points, Enzo with 8 points. Tarkowski with some DEFCON points. Tarkowski is just a really safe option because he can get those 4 pointers at the regular, basically. But other than that, not the best game week. 5 points from Fernandes. Only one Man United player. So maybe more are on the horizon potentially, but we'll see. 43 points after the wildcard. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the decision to wildcard? Is this something that you wished you could have had back? Would you still wildcard now in Game Week 24 if you didn't in Game Week 23? What are your thoughts on this past game week and the wildcard in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty necessary considering the dire state of my team, and I did bring in some players who actually did get some points in Fernandes, Semenyo, and Enzo. A bit annoying with the Semenyo vice captaincy. I mean, I figured both would score, but it's a bit unfortunate that Thiago didn't. It seems like Brentford were just generally speaking really unlucky to lose that game, considering how they played and hitting the post and all types of craziness. So yeah, I'm not too fussed. A bit annoying that Crystal Palace scored very late, because I would have gone decent, and Man United just absolutely took away at their chances against Arsenal. That double up didn't feel great, but the sort of difference would have been the fact that thanks to the leak, I started Gray, and of course that went well. He got unlucky not to get an assist and almost came close to scoring. So he looks like a really good pickup. I mean, both Semenyo and Gray look exactly like the things they needed to shake up this team a bit, which is crazy considering they have 5 million players in all positions. But sometimes that's what's necessary to
offensively,
take a team.
Center backs, they are struggling.
Yeah, of course. But even there, a lot of it's down to injuries. If they have a fully fit squad, they have players in all positions. But yeah, didn't like what I saw of Arsenal in that game. Generally speaking, I thought they looked a bit murky. But
first 40 minutes were good. It's just,
yeah, of course. But it's about how you finish games, not how you start them.
Yeah.
And I wasn't happy with that. Obviously, with ourselves, with the Leeds game, Leeds just looked better than us in the first half, and then it's a tale of two halves. We were better than them in the second half, and credit to Barry for scoring. Credit, the team for rallying as late as they did, even though we look like we could have easily gone 2-0 down as well. But unfortunate that we didn't get more. Of course, what this boils down to is that, as many of you saw in the previous episode, while Pedro was in my original draft, of course, that would have meant not having Gray, not having NTI, and having a much worse bench. But I think overall, I'm happy with the team. It's just unlucky that they didn't get more points. NTI came really close to scoring, and Enzo scoring penalties and all this type of stuff because Polymer's not playing. Yeah. So a little bit of fun with that. He even did so for my Champions League fantasy team, where he took a penalty against Napoli. So yeah, I just need to see more from basically the Everton boys, the Arsenal boys next week, which I reckon we will, considering they have pretty decent matches. And overall, I can't be unhappy either because my unwildcard team probably would have been like 20 to 30 points. So
two players stand out though, Bowen and Rogers. They got 20 points together.
That's true, but again, long term, I definitely didn't want Bowen because he had done nothing in so many games.
Yeah.
And Rogers, I do feel somewhat weird about because he is capable of doing decent things, but Aston Villa are in such a weird flux right now.
Yeah, and you have a really strong midfield anyway. I think the template midfield right now with the wildcard is really strong. Like Enzo, Rice, Semenyo, or not Semenyo really, but like Fernandes, Enzo Fernandes, and Bruno Fernandes, and Rice seem to be pretty nailed. And then you have the likes of Mbomo. Semenyo, I think personally should be the template because he is just really amazing. He should have had more points as well. Like he had two big chances he could have scored outside of his goal, including the one where Gehi would have had the assist. So yeah, I think the midfield is really strong anyway, without the players that we mentioned, Rogers. So yeah, I think the team is looking strong. It's a pretty template team, just like it's pretty similar to mine as well. But I'm pretty happy with my squad, and I think you should be as well. I think we ended on the same amount of points, basically, just down to me captaining Semenyo, I guess, because you had some other points with Gehi and Tarkowski that I didn't have. So So yeah, not the best, but not the worst start either to the wildcard, I think, for either of us. And I think we're going to kick on and have some better results going forward. But someone that has had good results lately, or for a long time now compared to us, basically, is Kimo, who was far behind us at the start of the season, but he's like clawed his way back, and he has these guys, Rodgers and Bowen, already in his team, kept them, didn't wildcard. He did 2 transfers. He sold Foden. I think that was after the leaks. Because we messaged him right after the leaks came out. And he said, like, I'm doing Foden to Semenyo and Cunha to Enzo. And the Foden to Semenyo thing worked out. Cunha to Enzo made sense because Cunha wasn't starting for Man United against Arsenal away. But he ended up getting 9 points because he scored the winner and got bonus points. But yeah, Enzo still good transfer, of course. Got 8 points. So despite that being a -4, can't really begrudge him for that transfer when Cunha played only like 20 minutes against Arsenal away. Like, you wouldn't expect him to get points from that, but he did. But Anderson with 8 points, O'Reilly with 6 points, 59 points in total for Kimo. He also benched Haaland with the 1 point and did 2 transfers to -4, 2.4 million in the bank as well, which is going to be handy for the next game week. And all chips intact for Kimo, who is now 1 point behind me, I think, so around 500k overall. This season. So yeah, what do you reckon with Kimo's team? How far away, like, do you think he's going to be able to survive now without a wildcard? Do you think it's looking decent? He has a couple of issues in his team. He doesn't have Gabriel, doesn't have Bruno Fernandes. He has the likes of O'Reilly, Fofana, Tabier, who's injured, Treffer, who hasn't really been that much, hasn't been that good for a long while. What do you reckon with Kimo's team? Is it like good enough for the future, or should he try to make some drastic changes?
I would say he still needs to make some changes here, but if he's that desperate to save his wild card until after some news has come out about the double game weeks, by all means, but there are still some glaring things that need to be fixed for sure.
Yeah, like what? What would you look to change?
I mean, I personally think Gordon's been a really strange asset in the FPL. Bowen, it's a little too late in my opinion. Of course, it worked out for him in that regards, but going forward, there are many viable options that he can pick. Fofana, I don't think is gonna be a good pick in that sense.
Doesn't seem like a starter anymore.
No, and also the blaring omission of Bruno Fernandes and all of these Man United assets when they're actually now starting to cook a little. So, yeah, I think there are some things that can be fixed there. And I think you might have to wildcard to get there, unfortunately.
Okay, maybe.
Tavernier is just a waste of space in that regards because
for a while,
yeah. So there are some things that he can fix.
Yeah, personally, I think he has a good enough team to survive it. I've talked a lot about like wildcarding it or not wildcarding, but yeah, it is one of those teams where you could think about it at least. But he has Enzo, just one Chelsea player, 0 Man United players. Like, there are some issues here, of course, but I think he has like a decent enough squad as it is to get by. But 59 points, regardless, good score for him this past game week. So he is, of course, smiling, doing well in FPL. Ever since I started doing badly in Game Week 9, basically, he's done really well. So yeah, it's going to be a tight battle between us for who is winning the internal league between all three of us, all three founding members of the FPL School podcast, because that is Kimo, if you don't know. He is one of the 3 guys, including us 2, who started this podcast. So yeah, he gets featured as a prominent member, and we talk about his team every single week, and this week is no exception, basically. Another thing that's no exception is the manager of the week, which is something that we do here on this channel every single game week. This time around, the manager of the week is, can you try to pronounce the name for me? He's Indian. Do you know how to pronounce that?
No idea.
It's Lal. That's it's not that difficult to pronounce his name. So but Lal got 76 points this past game week. That is enough to be the manager of the week in the FPL Scope Mini League with the league code FNPQ83 if you guys want to join. And if you get the highest score, you'll get featured on the podcast, basically. Bowen as well, typical guy who got a lot of points this past game week, 12 points. Wilson with 10 points, another guy that I wildcarded away with my wildcard, sadly. Semenyo with 8 points, he was one of the transfers. Grealish and Bruno Guimaraes, who are both out for this game week for Semenyo and Enzo. Great transfers there with the 2 transfers available. Kept Cunha for 9 points, that was also great. Benched Timber, which was also really good. And Van Dijk got 9 points. Donnarumma with 8 points as the goalkeeper for City. Mukiel and Trokowski with their usual DEFCON points as well. That is more like that is as good as 1 clean sheet basically out of 2 defenders, to have 2 DEFCON defenders in Michele and Tarkowski. So yeah, a lot of things going his way. Of course, the downside is the fact that it seems like this manager did not have the leaks basically, because Haaland is captain. Could have been a lot more, especially with Bowen vice captain. That is a bit of a shame, because imagine if Haaland didn't play, that would have been Bowen with another 12 points. That's 11 points lost basically. So yeah, could have been even better, but 76 points is more than enough to be the manager of the week this past game week. So congrats to Lal from India. And yeah, what do you reckon with this team? It is also some issues like long term. Also no Fernandes, no Gabriel. But also a couple of good players as well. Tarkowski and Semenyo, Haaland, you recognize those guys from your team. Saka, which we'll get into what to do with him going forward. But yeah, Timber and Saka already 2 Arsenal players at least. And got some nice points from Van Dijk with 9 points from him after he's been pretty bad this season overall. So yeah, what do you make of the manager of the week and how they did this past game week?
Yeah, it's a very good transfers considering long-term injury Grealish, which I'm pretty sure was before the week. So interesting that he's held on to Grealish that long. Bruno, a bit unlucky because I think he was injured, in the midweek of last week or something like that, wasn't it?
Bruno G, yeah.
Yeah, it was something like that, like in the Champions League game or something.
Yeah.
So good moves in Enzo and Semenyo. I mean, 2 players that I brought in my wild card as well. Yeah, super unlucky with not keeping track of which again, it is such bullshit that is part of the meta game to make sure that you optimize your team and etc. But these leaks do happen, and sometimes these leaks are kept to themselves, and other people are nice enough to let people who are chronically online know that certain players won't be starting. But I do have to say, in terms of future proofing, that bench looks pretty dire. Euro, who is not currently playing, Mark Gree, who's not even getting a chance under Liam. So yeah, I would say those are maybe some things that they can fix. But the rest of the team looks good. Michele is always great. Tarkowski is always great. Van Dijk got a goal. Lucky bitch. Saka's a bit of a question mark. Cunha might start getting more minutes now due to Dorgu being injured, and might get to play as a striker, so it's not the worst. But
it's looked good when there are some as well.
For sure, he is just a good player, and he's finally getting into his own. Him, Bruno, and Mbeumo are all options for different reasons, but
and
it does. Yep, all of those players have to be in consideration, which makes me wonder maybe to downgrade Saka into a Bruno Fernandes, and what to do with your strikers. But yeah, it's interesting. Some good picks there. Donnarumma has been solid for City for some time now, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do against Spurs. But there are some omissions here that need to be addressed, including, Arsenal triple up, more Chelsea assets, and potentially more Man United assets. But kudos, 76 points is nothing to laugh at.
Yeah, it is more than good enough to be the manager of the week. So we're going to talk about his team as well, or her team. I'm not even sure if that's a guy or a girl, but we're going to talk about their team at the end of the podcast as well for the next game week, and even a little bit beyond that, like future planning and stuff. So yeah. But speaking of future plans and what's going to happen in the future, we have the future predictions for this next upcoming game week. We have, of course, 10 matches as always, which is normally the case for Premier League game weeks here, and we have a couple teams that we want to talk about, or a couple of games we want to talk about. The London derby, basically, between Chelsea and West Ham. Interesting game there, where I have a 2-1 win for Chelsea. You have a 3-0 win for Chelsea. I'm going to be able to discuss that. We're going to also talk about Man United Fulham, because Man United are the team of the week, basically. Like, that's the team everyone's talking about. And we also got to talk about Spurs against Man City with that whole thing as well. Those are the 3 games we decided on talking about. But you can lead the way and talk about the first 5 fixtures and ask me a question about the Chelsea-West Ham game. And then I'll take over and talk about the final 5 games of this game week, basically.
As always, Matthias asked me to send in the predictions, usually after he's already done his, and hilariously, we both got the same result in the first game, which is Brighton Everton. Everton just seemed to have Brighton's number as of recent years, and the fact that Everton squad has been boosted with Brantwaite and KDH being back. So I do think that Everton are in a better spot now. Barry scoring or is amongst the goals, and yeah, I think it should be a simple win or not a simple win. It's going to be a tough win, but if it ends up being 5-1 or 6-1 or whatever that crazy score was a couple of years back, that'd be great. Dwight McNeil's favorite victims in that regards. Then we have Leeds Arsenal. We both just think it's going to be a routine win for Arsenal. We're flying high, doing well in the Champions League with just win. But of course, the Premier League has faltered a little bit, but I'm sure the midweek Champions League matches have also helped them maybe regain some of their confidence back, especially in Victor Gyökeres. Really great to see Kai Havertz amongst the goals as well. So it should be a routine win for Arsenal, and Leeds have been sort of in a weird spot as of late. And yeah, hopefully Calvert-Lewin doesn't score against my double up of Arsenal defense. In the next game, we sort of differ a little bit. You've gone with the 1-1 draw for Wolves because I'm assuming it's because they're playing at home, or you just don't believe in Bournemouth that much. I personally think that Bournemouth are going to get away with another win. I think they're flying high on that Liverpool sort of prediction, which I predicted they would win in that game, which is quite funny. So yeah, I think they're just gonna continue doing that and gonna grab another win. And I'm gonna be looking to see if that James Hill starts again, because if he is becoming a sneaky little pick in FPL. And of course, we've come to the game that you are in the edge of your seat for, an evening match, which clashes with various other things that we're interested in, and etc. Chelsea versus West Ham. I've gone for a really big win for whatever reason, but I guess you have a little bit more belief in West Ham, considering they've shown a little signs of life as of late, and signed the forever West Ham tormentor in Odometer. I only say that because we saw West Ham Wolves many years ago, and I'm pretty sure it's Traore scored 1-0 in like the 90 whatever minute, which was absolutely insane. So yeah, I guess in terms of my questions there, where do you think, and what's your advice for people? Because you just know, me included, everyone's considering Joao Pedro because of how streaky he is. He is constantly the type of player who'll score in like 4 or 5 games in a row, blank for another 6, and then score again. And right now, I mean, he scored in the Prem, scored in the Prem again, scored in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So he's in a sort of 3-game scoring streak. And yeah, would you advise people to get him in already, or would you tell people to hold?
I think it's a tough one. I think the fact that he played 90 minutes is making it a bit more complicated, especially with Rosinier's post-match comments about like we have 22 outstanding players and we will need to rotate. Like, is at home to West Ham one of those fixtures where they can take it lightly a little bit and maybe not play Joao Pedro? I don't know. Could be the case, but at the same time, this is also an interesting game because last time against West Ham, Chelsea won 5-1 and Joao Pedro scored like twice and had like a massive score that game week. I think he got 15 points. He might have had an assist on top of that as well. So it is a good opponent for him, I guess. So yeah, this is like, if you want Joao Pedro, this is the jumping on point. So like, if you have enough belief in him and Chelsea's attack now under a senior, then yeah, go for it, I guess. But it just depends how you would get him as well. Like, I don't think selling Igor Thiago is going to be worth it. I think it could be sort of the similar trap that we had with Ekitike not too long ago, where a lot of people sold Thiago for Ekitike, including us too. And Thiago just completely outscored Ekitike from that point onwards. But saying that, I don't think that was like that bad of a transfer either. I think Ekitike has been a bit unlucky not to get points in those games. He's also been really good, especially in Europe since then. But then like he was rested the last game as well. But I think if you're selling Thiago, I probably wouldn't do it. Even on the wildcard, we'll get to that discussion eventually, like what you would do on a wildcard. But so yeah, selling Thiago I would not do. But if you could get him in a different way, which we'll get to with your team as well, then maybe. I think he is of course like a streaky player, but at the same time he's also the type of streaky player that can be streaky for 2 games and then all of a sudden start blanking again. And especially when he gets really popular in FPL, that's usually when he does start blanking. So yeah, one of my best decisions this season was not buying Joao Pedro for Bowen in Game Week 5 because he stopped scoring and Bowen started scoring at that point. So maybe I would sort of do the same, especially with Thiago. But if I had the money, if I had like an easy way to get to him, then yeah, could easily do Kirby Jr., for example, or someone else in attack to Joao Pedro and then just sell him again once their 4 good fixtures are up. So sort of on the fence there, but I would lean towards no unless it is like a really easy opportunity for you to get him. And on a wildcard, it would, yeah, probably. I mean, it is upside. Like that's probably part of the reason why you would wildcard to get Chelsea players. So yeah, probably on a wildcard. Probably not if you don't have an easy way to get him in free transfers, basically.
Fair enough. And my additional question would be in regards to Chelsea defenders, who is the most like nailed player, would you say?
I mean, Chalobah is the most nailed. He's going to play 90 minutes mostly. He was rested in the Champions League, but he's also quite expensive. So I'm just a bit annoyed that I didn't bring him in earlier in the season because he started the season at 5.0 and I talked about him like pretty early. I think like around like game week 7 or 8 or something like that. I had him in like one of my wildcard drafts and said like he's been like underrepresented. He is getting DEFCON points, he's getting bonus points, he's getting goals sometimes, getting clean sheets here and there. And I recommended him like very highly. And then of course the following game week he got a red card. So like my lust for him, I guess, as an FPL option sort of died with that. But of course he's shown to be really worth it this season, getting a lot of points. So yeah, but I think he is the most nailed. I think Reece James, of course, is going to play most games. And whenever Reece James, like, he rarely gets those 30 minutes cameos. Like, he either gets rested or he plays 60 plus minutes. So I think he could be a good option, of course. But other than that, I don't really like Kukurea is also quite nailed, but he's also quite expensive and hasn't really shown anything this season. So I think I would lean towards Chalobah because I think it's like just a bit cheaper and also more secure with DEFCON points and stuff. Yeah, Chalobah would be where I go, or of course Sanchez in goal, which is what I've done and you've done on a wildcard. But in terms of like strictly defenders, I think Chalobah would still be the pick, even though he is like a bit more expensive, but could definitely go with him and could even double up with him and Sanchez. But I didn't trust Chelsea enough, as we saw with Palace being down to 10 men and still scoring at the end there. It's very typical Chelsea, very typical when I have Chelsea defenders. They always concede late like that. So not really surprised to see that happen. But yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think that's pretty much a great assessment of it because I like the fact that Reece James plays in midfield, but you don't know whether he'll play every game, which is frustrating because otherwise it's such a gold mine having. I mean, as even though this is not like a fair comparison, but I have Eric Garcia and UCL Fantasy, and he was playing as a midfielder yesterday and hit the bar once and almost scored another shot, and it was similar with Reece James specifically in Champions League because I'm pretty sure he got the assist for Juan Pedro or the penalty or something like that. So he is in more advanced positions, but again, you want consistency, especially now when we're getting to more double game weeks and all types of craziness. You just want consistency. So I do think it's between Sanchez and Chalobah personally,
Yeah.
even though I think Chalobah's upside is way better than Sanchez, but Sanchez can pull off these random TV saves that gives him additional points. So yeah, fair enough. Kudos for the insight. In regards to the next game, Liverpool Newcastle, I just realized this is just the reverse fixtures of the second game week or something similar to it.
Yeah, pretty early.
Because it's just because I'm pretty sure Liverpool Newcastle is the same week as Spurs
Yeah.
City last time, or City
Game,
Spurs.
game week, game week 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same fixtures. Spurs City,
and in that game, thanks to their superstar talent who barely gets to play anymore, Liverpool were able to edge the win in at St. James Park, and we just think that they're going to do the same thing at Anfield. They're looking great. I'm sure the win against Karabakh must have helped so much with the sort of confidence. You have like Soboslai getting an assist. You have McAllister out of nowhere, who's literally not done anything in so long, getting a brace. You have Mo Salah scoring a free kick goal, if you want to call it that, and Hugo Ekitike just looked amazing again. So yeah, I think it's too easy to say Liverpool are going to win. Newcastle, of course, got a good draw against PSG away, but
Yeah.
that was also not enough to keep them in the top eight. So, yeah, I think it should be a routine win at Anfield. And I'll leave it to you for the next 5 games.
Yeah, and the first game we actually have here that I'm going to talk about is Aston Villa against Brentford, which is another game where we differ. Like one of the few games that we do differ. You usually have pretty similar predictions, even though we do them separately. But here I'm actually going with a 2-2 draw. I think that's like the more unusual one, I guess, because yeah, Aston Villa have been the better team out of the two, but Brentford have also been really good this season. I think they've been sort of hard done by. Even this past game against Forest, or the past two games even against Chelsea and Forest, they have lost 2 in a row now, but I think both games they easily could have won the game as well. So I think Brentford is still pretty good, and Aston Villa are struggling a bit with injuries and stuff. They are now getting Douglas Luiz in midfield, which is sorely needed because they are lacking McGinn, Tielemans, and of course Kamara, who's been so good for them this season. So yeah, I'm imagining like a pretty high scoring game and a 2-2, but you're going with a 3-1, and I can see that as well because Aston Villa can pull off these types of wins. They have been really consistently good this season, so yeah, it is anyone's game really. But of course, Aston Villa are the favorites, so yeah, it sort of makes sense that one of us went for a draw and the other one went for a win for Aston Villa. Win for Brentford could happen, but unlikely, I guess. But anything could happen with Aston Villa, especially with the injuries that they do have. Then we come to Man United Fulham, which is like one of the main games to talk about, basically, because Bruno Fernandes is most likely going to be both of our captains. He's looking like the most favorite captaincy choice this game week, but I'm wondering, like, is there potentially like a shout to go with someone else, like Mbomo, for example? Is it something like that, or do you think Fernandes just has such a high save point of points, basically? Like, he is most likely going to get at least DEFCON or assist. Like, it seems like he has a higher floor than Mbomo, who's more like a boom or bust type of selection. But like, do you think there's room for anyone else than Fernandes as captain? And what do you think about the rest of the squad in terms of assets for Man United? Are there anyone, because you only have Fernandes in your own team, is there anyone else that you're considering bringing in for Man United, or are you happy with just Fernandes for now?
I mean, of course, before the injury, I would have said Dorgu.
Yeah.
I still think, if I remember correctly, I just want to double check some numbers. Just bear with me 1 second whilst I have a look. Someone I have mentioned before is he playing these days? Yeah, he still is playing. Dallo, I think he's just a great asset in terms of he's only 4.5, always bombs forward, is capable of getting these goals and assists in random games, and yeah, I think he's a fun pick, especially because now with Dorgu out as well, I reckon he'll go a little bit more offensively in terms of the defenders there. But Dorgu has been playing sort of this makeshift left wing position. I think he's a great option. I also think they have Amadiallo. I also think, and shoot me. Uh, I actually like the look of Mason Mount. The only issue with him is he never he doesn't get enough
Playtime.
playing time. So don't consider him until we know for sure more of his consistency. But he does score when he does get to play, which is um, interesting. But of course, the template picks are there. It's Cunha, well, Bruno Fernandes, Mbuemo Cunha in that order. And then defensively, I would say, yeah, Dowell seems to be the most fun as of right now. He's cheaper than a bunch of these other players as well. Like, because I would have said Alessandro Martinez is always really good too, but he is 0.3 cheaper. So, yeah, I think I would go with Dallo if you're looking for a defender. I'm probably a double up of Bruno and Mbuemo or Bruno and Cunha. I think Bruno is the most essential out of the midfielders there just because he's just so creative. Like you said, his ceiling is so much higher than the other two. You would think that Mbuemo and um, those guys can get like 8 or 9 points in a game, whilst Bruno could easily get 10 plus. And even when he doesn't, he'll randomly give you a five or between 5 to 7 points, whilst those guys will likely blank. He will somehow get a def con or get a random assist here or there, which is really useful in the long run. But I think against Fulham, yeah, that feels like a Bruno game.
Yeah, I think typically like that used to be like the way Bruno Fernandes got his points. Like whenever he is he's of course always the talisman, but when he gets to be in that offensive position and they dominate the game, that's usually when he was at his best back in the day. But of course that sort of leads me into the next question. Like they have had two really impressive wins against Manchester City and Arsenal, but they have been really good. Like in some big games in the past, they have gotten really good results, but then they've faced low block teams and then they've really struggled. That's been the case this season as well. So is there any apprehension in terms of that? Do you think like there's a chance that they might still not be able to crack the code when it comes to low block teams such as Fulham, for example? Do you think it will be an easy walk in the park basically, or do you think they could run into some trouble still because they haven't really proven anything with Carrick against these types of teams yet either? Like, what do you reckon with Man United? Do you think they're like a legit team in these types of matches as well, or do you think it's just that they were sort of got everything they wanted in these big games, which they have done in the past?
I think the most important thing is just how they played as well. I think I've been way more impressed of how they've been going forward and all these type of things under Carrick than I don't think I ever been with Amarim in that regard. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration as well. I do think there is a valid point in talking about the low block teams because that is something that they've struggled with, but that's also mainly been under Amarim, right? So I think this new sort of free flowing Man United side should do better. I don't get me wrong, Fulham are such a weird side. When they want to show up, they will. And Wilson is trying to get himself a big move because it's sort of it's sort of been like a
Open secret.
open secret that he's going to be leaving as a free agent, but it could be also a ploy to hit for him to get like a crazy booster contract at Fulham and also just getting himself some reassurance that he's a starter now because he used to come on as a super sub and now he's finally getting to start and is playing out of his skin, and there's a reason why he was a former Liverpool player and all these type of things. He has all the capabilities in the world to be at a top four side and etc. But yeah, I think he's finally living up to his potential. But I do still think that this Man United side are just in a good position. Cunha and Buemo and Bruno are all back at the same moment, back from AFCON, not injured anymore. Bruno was injured for a bit, then Cunha was injured for a bit, and then Buemo went to AFCON, and now they're all back together again under a manager that seems to play to these players' strengths rather than being this stubborn asshole who just play his brand of football and that's it. And it gets frustrating looking at managers who don't adapt to what works for their teams, but
Yeah.
it must be a lot of fun for Man United fans. I mean, some Man United fans are getting so gassed about this that they're like, "Oh, sign them up!" Like as if that's never backfired on them before. So,
Yeah.
but I do think that I've seen a lot of very good things from this Man United side. They are now showing themselves like the Man United of old. They Goonies never say die, and apparently this Man United side are the same because it was really impressive against City. More so, I thought it was more so than the Arsenal one. I think the Arsenal one was sort of just them capitalizing on their moments and
Crazy goals as well. Dorgu.
yeah, like Dorgu and
Cunha's nice
also
shot.
the Cunha's finish and yeah. So but again, it is about how they are looking going forward. That needs to be the highlight. And yeah, they look much better now. So I am intrigued to see where this can go. And what they're capable of. But I think it's a huge achievement if they do actually still manage to get top four this year.
Yeah, and they're currently in fourth, I think, so it's looking pretty good for them. We'll see how they kick on for the rest of the season. When you mentioned that like Man United fans are getting gassed, it just reminded me how like awful Man United fans are. Like how they're the worst. Like whenever they're doing well, they have been terrible for like a decade plus now. But like we have been around and we remember like how like is their saying is not arrogant, just better, and that basically just like tells you everything you need to know about that fan base. So, but I do welcome it back. Like I think the Premier League is a much more fun place when Man United are good. So it's going to be interesting for sure, and especially like with Arsenal now looking good as well. Like we could go get those types of old school rivalries between those two guys. Would be nice to see that in sort of the title race next season potentially. But yeah, a really fun game as well. I think the Arsenal Man United game sort of, a lot of people say football won, and I kind of like sort of agree. Like if I have been a pretty big fan of Arsenal in terms of how well they've done, in my opinion at least. Like they are a really good team. But like the biggest drawback with them currently is the fact that they are playing kind of like safe and boring football, and I think that's kind of down to the fact that they are just like desperate to cling on to this, like potentially getting this title. Like I think they need that to sort of open up a bit more. So really fun game, and really fun to see Man United now thrive with players in the right positions. I think that's like one of the main things with Amorim. Like you could say like he's stubborn and like stuck to his ways, but I think it's also like a really bad stain on like the United board that they actually hired him, because they knew about his system and what his preferred way of playing style was, at the same time that they knew Kobe Mainu and Amad Diallo were not fit to that system, and they were like the future of that team, and Bruno Fernandes for that matter as well as the attacking mid. So yeah, I think it's just more fun now with Carrick in charge, even though like I don't think Amorim is done by any means. Like I think he did so well at Sporting. I think if he goes to a team that is more fit to his needs, where he doesn't have like the two brightest young stars are not fit for his system, I think he could do well potentially. But yeah, we'll see about that. Next game is Nottingham Forest against Crystal Palace, which is also kind of an interesting game just because of the history that they've had this past season, really. It seems like now Jørgensen Larsen is going to leave Wolverhampton and go to Palace. That might even be confirmed by the time you're watching this, even now as I'm speaking. I haven't checked the news lately. But that seems to be a done deal, that he's going to leave and join Crystal Palace, and that means that Mateta might leave, and he might go to Forest, which is interesting because the deadline day is on Sunday. And this game is on Sunday as well. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game. But we have gone with the most boring score, I guess, in terms of FPL at least, with 1-1, where there's no clean sheets and there's little attacking returns. But yeah, hard game to tell, basically. Forest are usually pretty good at home. Palace have been a bit up and down lately. I have Munoz myself in my own team, and I'm a bit worried. Like, I don't really know if I'm going to start him or not over Mukiele. Like, I think that's a really difficult choice. Now let's move on to the next game, which is Spurs against Man City, which is another game we're going to talk more about. Like I said, this is the reverse fixtures of Game Week 2, where Spurs beat Man City 2-0, which was quite interesting at the time. But I think Spurs were kind of lucky, of course, that back then as well. Man City were the better team, and they had some massive chances. I remember Marmoush was really bad in that game. Missed a massive chance that Haaland put him up to, basically. And that could have been a completely different story. But that was part of like the strong start to Thomas Frank, and then after that, it's just gone really bad for Spurs. And yeah, he is on his last legs as a manager, seems like, and might need to bring out one of those classic Spurs against Man City results to get something, or to keep his place as the manager, basically. But I've gone with a pretty nice win for City, 3-1 away from home. You gone with a bit of a closer game, 2-1 for City, which is typically the other way around for us. You have more faith in City than me usually, but it's also against Spurs, who are terrible. So yeah, Spurs are just Spursy. But saying that, they are Spursy. They can beat Man City, which is typical Spurs as well. So yeah, what do you recommend this game? You have had it as like a pretty close, tightly contested game, I guess, with 2-1 for Man City. How do you think this will play out, and who do you think will benefit the most from this game? Like, who do you think this plays to the strengths of the most? Like, namely, who are the best assets for this game week, do you think, for Man City and Spurs?
The rotations have been a little bit strange and annoying, but it is very telling of their season right now. Who the best, I think, who scored yesterday are the two assets you need to consider. It's Ryan Cherky and Erling Haaland, right? At the end of the day, and I do think that those two together are cooking something special. It was really cool to actually see that Marmoush was playing alongside Holland yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and I think Marmoush has a much bigger role to play at Man City, I think they shouldn't be stupid enough to sell him, all things considered, because he is such a great talent, as we saw in the game where he benched Haaland. So, um, yeah, I think City are sort of finding their feet back and finding some rhythm. Spurs have looked really good in Europe, but I don't know if they've also just been super lucky to have sort of had the run of fixtures that they did in the Champions League. I can't remember any of their more difficult games. I feel like they only just played easy teams the entire time. But Coutinho Romero, one of my favorite defenders in the league, is on a crazy run of getting goals and assists in all sort of tournaments, which has been really impressive. But they've looked a little bit weird going forward. But it seems like Solanke might be back, and yeah, so Spurs are sort of in a weird flux position, and I honestly think that Frank is going to get fired real soon, and the question is when they consider it a tipping point, because at the end of the day, in terms of the Champions League, they did really well. I mean, they finished above Barcelona and all this type of stuff, but they in the league have been terrible. I mean, not being able to beat Burnley and so many weird results here and there. But like I've said in the past, they seem to be a bit of City's bogey team. They have
Yeah.
gotten some famous wins against them, but I also think that this team is probably the worst it's been in a long time. So I do think that Man City should be able to beat them, and I think it will be thanks to Cherki or even Holland. But I also like what I saw of Reinders in the game. I know Doku was really good. Yes, I mean Doku's assists were really good, but I think he got injured in
Yeah.
the game,
Yeah, it did.
and which is unlucky because he's the sort of exact player that you would have to counter Spurs with his blistering pace, and he's sort of starting to find his rhythm as a City player because, yeah, back in the day, he would never do these sort of assist through balls. He would try and dribble past everyone and then pass the ball. Um, but yeah, I do like what I've seen of City as of late. So I do think that they'll be able to edge it. And yeah, it's a huge boost for them that Ait Nouri's back. Nunez is also back and playing really well. And yeah, so I do think that City should be able to win this. But I do want to see more from Holland because he should be doing better. I mean, he looked like he was going to break every record under the sun. And is this the new norm for him? That he just goes extremely streaky, fucks around for a little bit, and then goes streaky again? I don't get it. He needs to show a little bit more consistency. I don't know if it's maybe the way Pep coaches them in terms of tactics and stuff like that. But I can't say that because some of the misses that Holland has done this year have been pretty egregious for him. Like I've seen him score
Mhm.
even more difficult from more difficult positions, and he's hitting the post and he's hitting the crossbar and stuff like that, or not getting his toe to it like he normally would, and these sort of things. So I urge him to play a little bit better because it's annoying that I'm blanking every week with him as captain. I mean, most of us are, but most people are also privy enough to go against him with captaincy. I'm just so afraid that I'll miss the haul.
Yeah, maybe. I think he's trying to peak around the June, July time because that's frankly his best chance of winning a title this year. So yeah, I think that's the goal, to do something in the summer and the big tournament that's coming up. Yeah, that's just my thoughts. But anyways, next game is Sunderland against Burnley, and we've gone with the same result. Sunderland at home against the worst team in the league, basically, I think, at this point, with Wolves sort of getting a bit of a resurgence. Sunderland have been really good at home, and Burnley have been pretty bad in general, even though they did get a result against Spurs. But 2-0 seems like an easy result there for Sunderland, and that's why I'm a bit hesitant when it comes to Munoz versus Mukiele. That's the final thing I want to ask you about. Like, if you had those guys, Munoz away to Forest and Mukiele at home to Burnley, of course, Mukiele has a higher floor, but Munoz has a much higher ceiling. Like, if he scores and Palace keep a clean sheet, he is 15 points basically, and I don't think Mukiele is going to get that, even though he has gotten some assists and goals here and there. Even assists in the 2 last games, actually. But yeah, what would you do in that instance? Would you start Mukiele or would you start Munoz? I need help for my own team.
probably would start Michaela. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, Munoz is in Munoz has the higher ceiling, but the question is also who do you trust more, Sunderland or Crystal Palace at this rate?
Probably Sunderland at home.
Neither, but
No,
it's
but
probably neither. But Sunderland is at home. Yeah,
I mean Sunderland. They've still been decent, haven't they? I mean, Granit Xhaka was missing
yeah,
last time against West Ham, of course. That's
yeah.
part of the reason why, and of course they met the mighty West Ham. So who's yeah, it's not really surprising to see them lose that game. West Ham are in great form after beating after winning the game before that against Spurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nah, it is a tough decision. I might still bench boost as well, but that would mean that I would have to do
Yeah.
another transfer of selling Dorgu. If
Mm-hmm.
Dorgu was fit to play, I would have bench boosted, but since he's injured now, like selling him to get like Senesi or something like that, I don't know. I could also just bench a different player. I could bench Thiago against Villa away, but I have 2-2 in that game. I think he could easily score. I could bench Declan Rice against Leeds to start Munoz instead, but
Arteta might bench Declan Rice against Leeds because he's garbage. So
Rice didn't play. So
Bice.
in the Champions League, he is the best midfielder in the world. So yeah, he is.
He is.
He is. Yes. But
Can't even
huh?
can't even shine Fermin Lopez's shoes. But okay.
Fernandes Lopez, you're pitting up my two favorites against me. So I'm gonna leave it at that, basically. Let's move on to the fixture ticker and see that Chelsea are the team to target basically right now. They have 4 really, really good fixtures. West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. You have talked about them quite a lot. It's interesting with the expected goal numbers. Like they have really high in both categories, really. They have conceded quite a lot of expected goals or expected goals conceded. But they also have the second best expected goals in the last 6 matches as well. So yeah, it's boding well for offensive players. And with Palmer still like a doubt to play, like he wasn't ready to play 60 minutes in midweek and then played 30 minutes. Had 2 assists, I think, for Joe Pedro for that matter. But I wouldn't really be too confident in him getting that many starts going forward with a lot of matches for Chelsea. At least they managed to get into the top 8 and got less matches from that. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a struggle for Palmer, but that's also going to be a benefit for Enzo Fernandes, who's going to play more as the number 10 and be on penalties if Palmer doesn't play. It seems like Senior is preferring to play under Santos in midfield. I think he's the one that he's had in the past, if I'm not mistaken, on loan potentially.
Strasbourg.
Yeah, Strasbourg. So yeah, it seems like he's a bit of a favorite of his. So and that bodes well for Enzo Fernandes. But other than Enzo Fernandes, he's like the main guy from Chelsea. How like you have Sanchez, of course, on your wildcard. Chalobah we talked about already in this episode. Joe Pedro, like how would you rank the Chelsea assets right now if you were to rank the top 3 basically?
I probably would rank it like Enzo, Sanchez, Juan Pedro, only because I think Enzo will play every game. Sanchez will start every game as well as their goalkeeper because I think Jorgensen's injured as well, which randomly happened. And I would have probably kept Juan Pedro a bit higher than both of these assets just because of his output as of late and just how streaky he is. But unfortunately, we don't know what Rosinier's thinking in terms of rotation. And I think Enzo survives rotation more than, say, a Pedro or. But again, Pedro's in such good form. You wouldn't not start him, especially when you're desperate to make top 4. So I think, yeah, I still think it'd be those 3. Palmer, of course, makes the equation if we knew he'd start, but the issue is he clearly has more of an injury than these guys are letting us on because he should be playing more and scoring more and etc. This would be a cakewalk captaincy for Palmer every single match day, in my opinion, had he been fit. Had he been fit, I would have made sure to have enough funds for him and just go Palmer captain almost every week because these are the sort of games where he goes nuts. So yeah, I think those would be the assets that I'd pick. Of course, Chalaba as well, but I think for his price range, you can get, Munoz, you can get sort of Gray and all these other players
Tarkowski.
who are, yeah, and Tarkowski, who's slightly more expensive than that, but yeah, you would still, I feel like they're very nailed because, again, it all depends on, because I think Chelsea do have at some point another mid-game week
They're playing the League Cup
match.
between
Yeah,
24 and 25. I think they're playing in the League Cup
yeah.
next
So
midweek.
next week,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's all types of things that are, and Chelsea are not completely out of it. Really, did they lose by 1 goal in the end, or did they still lose by 2?
1 goal, 3-2. They lost to Arsenal.
Yeah. So
Garnacho
they're
saving
still
them.
very much because
It's away though, but it's could.
it's but it's still going to be rotated 11s and stuff. So it could very much be still up for debate. I mean, we saw Arsenal concede twice to Kyle. So
Yeah.
yeah. So and
It's
was
Arsenal
in
C
goal.
though. Like if you look at that starting
Yeah.
lineup, it's
Yeah, but it's also Kepa in goal.
yeah, exactly.
So if Kepa starts to bleed blue again, then anything's possible. No, but in all seriousness, again, rotation might be a risk there. So again, a bit frustrating, but I feel with the three that I mentioned, for the most part, are pretty nailed. And I think Paul Pedro has to play because he's basically Chelsea's savior as of late. He's just scoring in every game and keeping them in it. So yeah, I would say those three.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think those are like the most popular ones as well. So yeah, and including Chalobah. So yeah, Chelsea is going to be an interesting thing, and I think we could end up like by the time we get to game week 28, we could look back at it and just like, oh, Joao Pedro had 50 points in the last 4 game weeks. Of course, that would have happened because he was in great form and he's a streaky player. Like, I could definitely see that happening. It's just, yeah, I just have had some bad experiences, I guess, with Joao Pedro, and just the Chelsea rotation thing is scaring me off a little bit. But yeah, I think I'm leaning more and more towards that. Yeah, he probably should have been part of my Walker drafts, maybe including Thiago rather than instead of Thiago. But yeah, he is definitely an interesting player for sure to think about for this game week and the next 4. That is also the case with Crystal Palace players. They have really good fixtures going up to game week 27, but assuming Man City beat Newcastle in the other League Cup semi-final where they have a 2-0 advantage going back to the Etihad, basically, you assume Man City to go through, and if that's the case, Palace will blank in game week 31, which is like the downside to bringing in Palace players. But we talked about Munoz. He is an interesting player that you could go for if you want to. But I think the more interesting thing now is that Jürgen Strand-Larsen is about to join Crystal Palace and basically take over the Mateta role. Mateta has had so many big chances this season. Strand-Larsen has had basically not that many for Wolves. And he's 6.1. Like, it is a really good price for a Palace striker, assuming he still gets that many chances. Is he someone that you could potentially look to bring in? Do you think he's like an okay option to go for, or do you think like he's just been out of form for too long that you don't really want to touch him? And especially with the fact that they are blanking and giving 31 as well, it's too much of a headache to bring him in. Or yeah, what do you reckon with him joining a new team now and being potentially the starting striker if they sell Mateta?
He's virtually Mateta as well. Like, people forget that he was amongst the league's worst in terms of big chances missed the year before. Yes, he's playing for Wolves or whatever, but still similar. They're very, very similar. I mean, of course, I think Mateta is better than Strand Larson in many ways, but I do think that they're very similar sort of players. But of course, we have more than once witnessed players that join a new environment and join a new team have that sort of new team bounce. So of course I would consider him, especially at 6.1. I feel sorry for Nketiah, who's like, that was my chance. Nope. You're always going to be second string wherever you go. So
that's his place.
Wow.
He's not that good. He scores against West Ham though, so I shouldn't say that, but yeah. I would take him at West Ham, to be fair.
Yeah, I'd probably take him at Everton, to be fair. But Barry, so I do think, yes, for 6.1, he is absolutely a fun option, but I would wait. I would see until, like, if he starts immediately against Nottingham Forest and Brighton, I think the jumping on point for Burnley at home could be excellent. So I'd say he's a hold, or I mean, not many people have him, so you could wait to buy him, but definitely something to consider for sure. I mean, of course, I think Munoz takes the cake for who I'd go for. It's probably Munoz, Sarr, and then him. But again, Sarr, we still need to see more of, even though he's AFCON champ.
Yeah, I think with Strand Larsen, I think for anyone that still has Bowen, I think Gaming 26 is a good jumping on point because Bowen has Burnley in Gaming 25. And then after that, he has some tougher matches. And that would be a nice point to just sell Bowen, get some money in the bank, and bring in Strand Larsen. That could be a good way to go. But yeah, you'd get 2 auditions basically, or at least 1 audition for Strand Larsen to prove himself against Forest away and Brighton away. If he does get the chance against Forest, which I think is likely because it seems like he's just around the corner to be announced, so he could be ready to play against Forest as well. Where I don't think Mateta's going to play because of his links with Forest on deadline day, the same day that they are playing. Yeah, he'll be an interesting player for sure. And Munoz is hoping that he can provide the goods for me, but Palace players, again, as another team that is not good for me in FPL, and I'm worried Munoz is going to be another dud once again. Like he was only giving 15 wildcard when I did that, and he got injured immediately. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Man United, we've talked about quite extensively already. Bournemouth is another interesting team. They have a lot of good fixtures going into Gaming 31, where they do have a fixture. They play Man United in Gaming 31, which is not ideal, of course. So a lot of people, after that, they have really awful fixtures. So a lot of people are looking into potentially getting some Bournemouth players. People have mentioned Evan Nilsson. Of course, Kripke Jr. is a nice backup option that we both have in FPL already. Senesi is always like a simple choice in defense, even though he's like quite expensive. 4.8 I think is currently. Any Bournemouth players that tickles your fancy? The new guy that they brought in, do you know anything about him? Do you think he could be a good option potentially? I haven't even checked his price, but like, do you think there's any Bournemouth players that you could potentially go for, or like people should consider apart from Kripke Jr.? Do you think Evan Nilsson is like a fair shout?
I think Evan Nilsson is a fair shout, especially if he's consistently playing. I do think we still have to wait and see a little bit more. I think James Hill is a
Yeah.
fun option, even though defensively they are so shaky. I mean, I know that as someone who had Petrovic and he got me like 1 clean sheet in 50 matches or whatever. So I do think probably stay away from them defensively, and it's a shame that they have so many injuries in terms of their attack. Tavernier getting injured. Kluivert was injured as
Yeah.
well recently, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, they're at the point where
Semenyo
they
left.
have to play,
Yeah.
and they
Brooks
have to play
injured.
Kripke Jr. and Evan Nilsson at the same time. So they'll sort of eat into each other's points in that regards as well, in my opinion. But I think Evan Nilsson is just the sort of best option that you can get. But considering his price point and considering the strikers in and around that price, I still think it's best to look elsewhere. I think Bournemouth's going to be one of those weird teams that you're not an absolute asshole for avoiding them because they're so weirdly inconsistent.
Yeah. What can you say about Ryan Roja or whatever, the new right winger that they have?
He's really good. It's just a question of whether they'll integrate him into the team
Only 19,
immediately.
yeah.
So I do think that they might be a bit sparing with him and play the likes of Adley and some other players just until he gets sort of more integrated with the team. I mean, he's come straight from Brazil just now. Like I wouldn't see him starting a game maybe until the Everton or West Ham game. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, but he's really talented, really good dribbler, just capable of doing most things very exceptionally well. So the question is just again, will they integrate him in time? So he's one of those fun to keep an eye out for, but until we know more, do not like immediately go for him. Um, yeah, it's a shame. Bournemouth are such a weird side. They're very good on their day, but they have so many injuries, and yeah, they're very. It's always a team win. It's not just Semenyo carrying them to victory anymore. It is very much the entire team pulling their weight, but it's just a question of who that's going to be, and it's a bit too unpredictable at current rate when you have other assets that are very easy to pick from.
Mm. I was actually reading now while we were talking about Ryan, an interview from Transfermarkt actually with like one of his former coaches at Fluminense, Ryan, and he says Ryan is a spectacular player. I worked with him before. Before he was a well-known player. He has a fantastic physique that reminds me a lot of Adriano. Like that's music to my ears, at least. Like Adriano is someone that I would have liked to see like a region of for a long time because he was absolutely outstanding. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but like it is a coach that has coached him before and says that he could be potentially in the World Cup squad as well. So yeah, that sounds enticing to me at least. So I'll be interested to see how he looks in the Premier League. We've seen Esteval take to the Premier League like a duck to water, as they say in Britain. So yeah, very interesting.
Gabriel Jesus tore up the league when he first came. So
yeah, of course. So could be an instant hit. That's going to be someone that I'm going to pay attention to, but probably a bit too early to bring him in for Wolves. And then Aston Villa is a tough game. Everton away is also a tough game. Maybe against West Ham in Game 27 could be a jumping on point, but that's like not too many good games after as well. But yeah, we'll see with him. But interesting player to watch for sure as well. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We have talked quite a lot already in this part of the podcast. So yeah, we should probably get a move on. Man City, of course, is always an interesting team. We'll get to as well when it comes to the weekly wildcard draft. Because I have two Man City players still, of course, Haaland as the number 3 pick and Semenyo as the number 5 pick. I think Guehi is someone that easily could have been here as well. It's just I don't want too many players out of the Palace, Arsenal, City, Wolves quadruple who all blank in Game 31. You need to sort of take that into account when you're building a team now on a wildcard. You can't have too many players blanking in Game 31 because you want to save as many transfers as possible for Game 33 for the double if you don't have the wildcard in 32. So yeah, that's part of the reason why Guehi is not in this squad, basically. But yeah, we've touched on it already, like Thiago versus João Pedro. Maybe fit in João Pedro next to Thiago, but like, how would you do that? Would you downgrade one of the midfielders? Would you downgrade a defender potentially? Like, how would you go there? I think another question on wildcard that some people are asking is like, could you drop Haaland entirely? So yeah, what do you reckon with the wildcard team? Like, is there anything that stands out to you? Anything that you would change like massively? Like João Pedro is like the main question, I think. How would you fit him in if you were to do a wildcard right now? Like, what would you do you think if you had the wildcard this week rather than this past game week?
yeah, I mean, the thing you have to consider to yourself is, do you think Thiago's next run of fixtures are good enough to sort of keep him in the squad? Personally, I don't think so. Even though he's proven to score in the matches you don't expect him to. So
Yeah.
it is a bit of a odd, hard one. I mean, again, Mbeumo just looks great. Then you need to ask yourself, is Mbeumo more worth it than João Pedro in the run of fixtures that they have? They've got Fulham, Spurs, West Ham, and us, Everton, whilst Chelsea have West Ham, Wolves, Leeds, and Burnley. So it is a simple question of like that you can ask yourself, and whether that's okay, or whether you think that a double up of Arsenal defense is worth it. Of course, I do, because of the double game week that's coming up, and they do have some matches, and if they're intending to win the league, the way they're winning the league right now is because of how good the defense is. So I'd say the one that could be potentially, and it's not even that fair because I think he's just as good as João Pedro, or if not a bit more consistent, I think maybe Mbeumo's on the chopping block, or even Igor Thiago. I think that is, it is a question of either or at this point. If you can have both, then have both. But do you think Igor Thiago and João Pedro is better than Mbeumo and João Pedro? That's also the question you have to ask yourself then.
It also depends who you're bringing in as that other midfielder. I mean, Mbeumo is a bit more expensive than João Pedro, so you could get someone like mid-price-ish. You could go with KDH, for example, from Everton. He's back in the team now and still at a pretty cheap and nice price. Another player that I actually was thinking about when you come to Man United section, just if you want someone like on the bench that you can just have as like a guy that plays at least now, is Kobe Mainoo. He's 4.6 and he plays every game, 90 minutes, we assume. He got an assist this past game week. He's not like that good for DEFCON, so that's like maybe the downside with him. But like if you want someone as like a cheap guy to have on your bench, it could be worse than him if you don't have any like aspirations to have triple Man United. That is, which could be the case. But yeah, it just depends who you would go for rather than Mbeumo. But Mbeumo has been so good for me this season. He scored twice, like 2 games in a row now. He's played as a striker, out of position. He's going to play more minutes now with Dorgu being out. Like, I really like Mbeumo. I have him as the number 6 pick for that reason. I just like, really big fan of him. I think I would be more inclined to sell Thiago and then bring João Pedro back for Thiago, or bring Thiago back for João Pedro, I guess, after those 4 game weeks. That would be my answer to that. I did have some issues or questions when it came to Thiago versus Joao Pedro, but I ended up just Thiago is safer for minutes. He's going to play every game. We've seen him score in tough games in the past. Most at home though, so maybe that's like the key against him. Like he's playing away to Aston Villa, playing away to Newcastle, at home to Arsenal, but that's a tough game, of course. But that's probably going to be the one game where I do bench him and then he scores. That would be typical FPL this season. But yeah, but why do you hate Brentford? And Boemo and Thiago, singling out the Brentford boys, former and current.
I mean, I only say that because, well, Bruno Fernandes is Bruno Fernandes, and we've already discussed why we think he's the better asset out of the two. Declan Rice, you have to sort of have because of the double game week coming up. Semenyo, just completely continuing the form that he had before he left Bournemouth, and Enzo is too cheap not to have and has been delivering the goods, but it would be so typical in these 4 games that he starts blanking, but like he did sort of in the previous round when people brought him in and he did fuck all. So I would say that's basically the only reason why. And Thiago, I only say that because Brentford have tough games and they did get unlucky against Forest, but at the end of the day, it's the outcome is what the outcome is. And Joao Pedro just has a crazy ceiling as well, and Chelsea do look good under senior, and it's the classic. The fixtures dictate the purchases.
Yeah. What about selling Haaland-less drafts?
Yeah, I mean, I do understand why people are going to do that, but the minute he scores a hat trick, you're going to look like an asshole for not having it. And it's, people had so many things to say about Haaland in the beginning of the season, and he just kept scoring. And, as someone who owned him from game week 1, like, I don't see a point in selling him. The only reason I would is if Salah just starts doing it every week. Then it's an instant, easy double transfer there. But other than that, yeah, I think Haaland is too good of an asset. I still think that City can turn this around and, will be, second place or first place team by the end of it. So, yeah. And the only way they're going to be able of doing that is through Haaland right now, because I don't think the rest of the players are in that level of consistency that Haaland showed in the beginning of the season. So if Haaland even remotely gets close to that, then yeah, you need to have him in your FPL side. And I think it's also just like, I understand that a lot of these, it's the gambler's fallacy at the end of the day, but at the same time, he is just too good. We all know what Haaland's capable of.
Yep.
Like, if he stopped playing for the rest of the season, it'd be a monster season for most players. He's already passed 30 goals, in all comps and all this type of stuff with international duty involved. So, it's it wouldn't surprise me if he ends the season, with 50 plus goals, and that's an exceptional season. So
Yep.
to get there, you got to keep it, and I think he will come good. I do have belief in the City side, and they're showing signs of improvement, and they've got the right players back, and all types of things. And the way City just basically went, screw Liverpool. They can't even pay. They can't even be arsed to buy you now. We can, and then they did, and he's an exceptional talent too, and there's a reason why he gets to play for England. And he looked really good in his. I don't know if did he actually start in the Champions League game too? Because I didn't really pay attention to.
You're busy with Barca.
Yeah, and
He
was just looking
did
at
not
the goals.
start. No.
Yeah, so
no,
he'll
of course,
probably-
because it's Champions League. He can't play in the Champions League.
Oh yeah.
Him and
He's
Semenyo.
tied until the next round. So
Yeah.
even more reason to believe in him and the league and all this type of stuff. Like, him and Semenyo are really good pickups. I mean, it's very telling that both of us were at first like, should we bring Semenyo? Yeah, of course we have to bring Semenyo into our team because of how well he was playing in the cup and etc. So yeah, um, I do believe in City and I do believe in Holland. I mean, it's very telling that you have him still number three,
Yeah.
even though he's been blanking left and right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for me, I don't think it's really a question. I think the biggest thing that it comes down to is the fact that we don't really have any other good expensive alternatives, really, apart from Fernandes.
mhm.
Like Saka hasn't performed, Palmer is an injury doubt, Salah hasn't lived up to his potential, and is like way too expensive for what he's shown so far this season. But if Liverpool get a new manager and Salah finds back to his winning ways, then yeah, of course, could always reverse that and go with Salah, especially once Liverpool get good fixtures from around Game Week 28 onwards, and Holland blanks in Game Week 31. That could be potential jumping points between those two guys. But yeah, for now, Holland's still in the team. Spurs, even as Liverpool, they beat Liverpool 3-0 last time. I think that's going to be a really interesting game in terms of how City are looking for a title charge. Like, if they get a nice result there away at Anfield, if they can do something similar to what they did at home against Liverpool, then yeah, they are definitely still in the title race. But if they lose that and Arsenal can keep chugging along and getting 2-pointers here and there, or most of the time, it's going to be a tough sledding for Man City, who might want to pivot and think more about the Champions League instead. Of course, also alongside the League Cup and FA Cup, which they're also still in. So, yeah, plenty of fronts to fight battles for Man City. They should also be thankful to Jose Mourinho for beating Real Madrid and making sure that they get the 8th place in the Champions League and they don't have to play the playoff round. So that's going to be a helpful thing for Man City in the run into the season, because they have, like, at least before Semenyo and Guehi coming in, they have had like a bit of a, like, the same starting 11 every single game week they had for such a long time, and they saw the effects of that with a lot of injuries now to center backs and stuff like that. So Guehi and Semenyo could be what changes the season for them, but we'll see what happens with Man City. It's going to be interesting to see. But Holland's still very much in my plans, and Semenyo still very much in my plans. And Guehi, I kind of wish I had, of course, because he got more points than Munoz. I could have just benched Munoz for Mbeumo. In hindsight, should have benched Holland for Mbeumo, but what can you do anyways? But let's move on to your team for Game Week 24. And yeah, we've talked about it already. Thiago to Joao Pedro could be an option. But of course, also, you have 2 free transfers. You have 2 transfers left, so you could find a different way of bringing in Joao Pedro in for Kripke Jr., for example, instead. And Njai would be the guy that you would downgrade if that's the case. He has 0.5 in the bank. Kripke Jr. is 4.6, and Joao Pedro is, 7.2 or something like that now. So you still need to make up like about 2-3 million. So I think Njai, who is 6.5, 6 point something like that now. If I'm not mistaken, you would have to downgrade him to someone like Miley or Mainu, for example, to be able to afford Kripke Jr. to Joao Pedro, and you would use 2 transfers to do that after wildcarding, which is why I'm like a bit hesitant when it comes to that. But I also get the Joao Pedro thing, especially since you've been high on him before the goals that he scored this past game week as well, and in the Champions League. Like, he's proven his worth since you considered him, and then ultimately went against him because of the struggling minutes basically lately. So yeah, what are your thoughts currently with the team? We also touched upon the Fernandes versus Holland. It seems like you're going with Fernandes as captain there. But mainly, what's like your thoughts when it comes to transfers? Are you likely to stand pat? Are you likely to do Thiago to Joao Pedro, or likely to do like a double move to bring in Joao Pedro alongside Thiago?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to consider how to best optimize my bench boost because I feel like this might be a week where I just burn it just
Yeah.
for the sake of it, have some decent fixtures, and have just a decent squad. I mean, that's what the great thing about a wildcard gives you. It gives you the opportunity to refresh your team and etc. But it also gives you some, for the most part, benching uh, headaches unless you go the classic Kevin no bench squad, which has surprisingly been working for a lot of managers this year. I mean, this is statistically one of my worst FPL years ever, and I think a lot of it's because I went against my guns with some of these transfers and not just picking up trendy players because I, for whatever reason, went like, the trend's gonna stop, and I'm usually someone who hops on these sort of players, including Juan Pedro. So yeah, I will have to take a big consideration as to who to bring in. But yeah, I mean, the squad looks good just holding, and I really would love to know what's going on with Timber as well, because if there's an actual injury to him that's a bit more long term, then
Yeah.
I need to reconsider who my third Arsenal player is anyways, and all this type of stuff. And if Calafiori is back, then that's something to consider as well, and etc. So yeah, I am a bit concerned in regards to who or how to bring players in. Of course, I could always bring in KDH instead, of which I and try to save some funds like that and see who else I can do. I
Wouldn't
could always get rid of Thiago just straight up.
I just
And just
checked,
do
and
the
like
one
even
tran-
if you sell Njai for like regardless of who you sell him for, you won't be able to afford Krippy Jr. to Joe Pedro, sadly.
Yeah. So it seems like Thiago out is the only way, and yeah, I don't know. It's gonna like once I it's gonna be like a very late decision, anyways. I think because if
Mhm.
I see any leaks like Juan Pedro definitely starts against West Ham, he's straight into the team. It's just a question of how.
Mhm.
Do I get rid of Declan Bice for a little bit? Maybe. Maybe. Nah, he's gonna score twice against Leeds and it's gonna annoy me, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. But
I'm not gonna do that.
no. Igor Thiago could be on the chopping block, to be honest, and it's why it's kept as an option there. But I also don't hate the idea of standing pat, getting another free transfer. But
Yeah.
yeah, um, I have to wait and see. I need to know a little bit about Timber news, because if Timber is benched for or starting and all this type of stuff, then all systems go. But I think a bench boost might actually happen because there's a good
Yeah.
option of players, Krupa Jr. away to Wolves, Ronaldo at home, because Burnley, obviously, Dubravka uh,
Against Sunderland.
is,
It's
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
the Monday game as well, so that's gonna be an
yeah,
interesting game.
yeah. So if it ends 0-0,
Yeah.
beautiful. But yeah, so and it could easily go either way in that regards. But I do think Sunderland are going to uh, win. But Dubravka has shown more than once that he's capable of getting like a cheeky little 4-pointer, even though he concedes twice. So because he just gets so many good saves and stuff like that. I
Mhm.
mean, once Burnley go down, I reckon Dubravka will somehow eke himself into a Premier League side again. So
Yeah.
he's shown more than that he's more than capable. I'll go as far as to say he's better than Ramsdale. That's a bit stretch, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do think a bench boost could be on the cards, and
Mhm.
if I do end up doing a bench boost, I could also mess around with the team a little bit because I do have two transfers and stuff like that. But I think Juan Pedro in is looking. I mean, again, I had him in my initial fucking draft, so it's frustrating that I don't have that option. But considering who I had on the bench instead, yeah, that would have stunk as well.
Yeah, I mean, it also tells you a little bit about how random FPL can be in terms of scoring. Like, we're both considering bench boosting this game week with one Burnley defender and one Sunderland defender playing against each other on the Monday game. But we both can end up bench boosting. We both can end up not bench boosting. And whether we do or not will, like, completely change how we feel about that game. Because if we do bench boost with one Burnley, one Sunderland defender, we're going to hope for that 0-0 so badly. But if we don't, we're going to hope for that 1-1 so badly so we don't get to have massive points on our bench that we didn't get to realize ourselves in our team. So yeah, that is like the randomness I fail sometimes. And it might be the case that you bench boost and I don't, and we're going to be rivals on the Monday with that game in hand, basically, to see what happens there. If I do end that, indeed bench Mukiele, which I might not do because he has a higher ceiling. That's why I'm sort of like, I sort of get why you went with Reinaldo instead, because he's just easier to bench. Like, it's harder to bench Mukiele because he has that type of like assists/defcon type of ceiling that Reinaldo doesn't have. But Reinaldo is of course cheaper and is someone you can just stash on your bench. So yeah. But saying that, Mukiele did get an assist and actually is 3 points ahead of Reinaldo at this moment in time. But yeah, you bench Reinaldo anyway, who got -1 point even because he had a yellow card and almost got red carded before he was subbed off at the half. But it's also the other thing with Reinaldo, he might not even play the full game. But I think that was down to the fact that he was like really close to getting a red card. I think he's going to play 60 plus slash 90 minutes the next game as well, because he has been playing pretty much every game he's been available for this season. So yeah, bench boost I think is definitely an interesting thing for you if Timber is indeed fit. But if there's still doubts about Timber, and both Kruby Jr. and Ronaldo could be on like borrowed time. They both could be like 60 minutes. Like maybe both get subbed off before 60 minutes. That would be the worst thing on the wildcard or on the bench boost, especially. But yeah, bench boost is for sure interesting. When it comes to the rest of the team, I think, like I said, I am leaning more towards just keeping Thiago rather than Joao Pedro. But for you and your playing style, I totally get it if you want to go with Joao Pedro. So I think that's going to end up happening. You're going to bench boost and play Joao Pedro, and we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for sure. And you guys down in the comments, if you're still with us in this podcast, an hour and 25 minutes into it, then please let us know down in the comments what you would do in Kevin's situation. Would you go for Joao Pedro or for Thiago, or would you stick with Thiago, and would you bench boost or not? That would be interesting to hear you guys.
Or would you claim that your club got hacked and delete your club and try again next year?
That's also a good idea. That could also be the case. That's what FPL Focal did. Well, he didn't claim he got hacked, but he deleted his team at the end of the season because he was upset with the final round. I remember he got a bit of backlash from that. But anyways, water under the bridge, I guess. Moving on to Kimo, who's not going to delete his team. He has a long and storied history in FPL, of course, and he's been doing really well lately as well. Going up the ranks, I think for me, like this is way more of an easy choice. Gordon playing away against Liverpool. He got a red card against Liverpool last time. He is, of course, has deep-seated hatred, I guess, from his time as being an Everton player against Liverpool. Could get red carded again. Could also like
he's also a Liverpool academy player, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
he has, for someone who like has Everton ties, he's very much gonna be a future Liverpool player, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I don't know. I think it's a little bit of both. I think I completely back the transfer and all this type of stuff, but I could also see Gordon getting a goal, so it might end up just being a plus minus.
Yeah.
But long term is what you're considering here with Fernandes, anyways. So,
but even short term, like Liverpool away against versus Fulham at home for Fernandes, Gordon who's been terrible, Fernandes who's been great. Like I think that transfer makes all the sense in the world. Like of course Gordon can score, but that can happen with any game week. Like you never know who's going to score. It could also
of course, but I do think long term Fernandes is much more the better pick, and should have brought him in earlier, to be honest.
Yeah, so for me, like it is a pretty simple transfer. You have enough money in the bank to go from Gordon to Fernandes, and Gordon is like a player a lot of people are selling. Fernandes is a player a lot of people are buying, of course, and it would be a better captaincy choice potentially as well if you want to go with Fernandes over Haaland, which we didn't discuss last time. But like, how are you in terms of like percentages, in terms of captaining Fernandes versus captaining Haaland, or potentially a differential captain if there's anyone else that you're considering? Like, what do you think?
60-40?
60-40 for Fernandes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am still very close to captaining Haaland, but that burned me last time when I captained Haaland against Spurs instead of Salah against Newcastle. But again, that's because Marmoush screwed Haaland and whoever, not Foden, it was someone else who also screwed up something, and Haaland also himself missing a chance when he should have really buried it. But here's a question for you in regards to Kimo's team.
Yep.
Would you go -4 for Joao Pedro because he can do a straight swap from Bowen to thingy, right?
It could do that.
Would you go -4 for Bruno then, or would you go not -4 for Joao Pedro?
I'm trying myself in my own team to not do -4s too much, and I think Bowen, especially since Bowen has Burnley the next game, I think I would keep him. And like I said, Bowen is a nice jumping off point to do Strand Larsen potentially and saving some money in the bank, because even if you get Fernandes for Gordon here, you still need money in the bank to get Gabriel at some point, because he is like needed, especially with this defense, with Fofana and O'Reilly being like a bit iffy when it comes to playing time. I think getting money that way and like downgrading to an even cheaper guy for Bowen after he's played Burnley is the better thing, in my opinion. But yeah, I would probably just keep it. Also, Bowen had 12 points this past game week. Who knows? West Ham typically do get good results against Chelsea here and there. Like it is typical. West Ham and Chelsea is like we've seen that in the past as well several times. Chelsea beating West Ham 5-1, that can happen, and then in the same season they can beat Chelsea. We've seen that in the past as well, most famously when Yarmolenko just turned Rudiger inside out and easily scored against him. Even when West Ham have been really bad, we've been able to get results against Chelsea, which could happen. But yeah, Joao Pedro is of course the better asset, but I think for -4, you would say that on average he gets 4 points more than Bowen. I think I would just do another way. And like I said, get more money. Like Bowen is like a prime candidate to downgrade, whether it's to Krupi Jr. or if it's just on Larson to get money to get Gabriel eventually, which I think is important for Game Week 26, especially for the double game week. So that would be my 2 cents on that at least. But of course, that's also like he has Raya and Timber already, so it would be triple up Arsenal defense. I'm not sure if I would do that either on a Wildcard or on a double game week against Brentford away and Wolves away.
No.
So yeah, could always do Timber to Gabriel as well in that regard, because I think Gabriel is going to be like the most likely captain in the double game week. Some people, if you have Saka, of course, you could go with him. I'm personally considering going with Declan Rice for the double game week, assuming they get it, just because I want to back my guy. But
who are the teams that they're facing though?
Brentford away and Wolves away.
Okay.
But yeah, I would still keep Owen for the Burnley game. At least he scored. He did, or did he? No, he was close.
And he's your pen taker, so
yeah, he's the penalty taker as well. It's Paqueta leaving or left. So yeah, but yeah, I would still probably keep him for now.
Oh, Sanchez pen save.
No.
You can
if he scores a rebound, then
yeah,
fine,
exactly.
fine.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
We're in deal. Yeah.
I'll take it. And Bowen isn't really the best penalty taker either, so it could definitely happen. I wouldn't be too surprised. He was so close to missing the penalty he took last time as well, so yeah, wouldn't be too surprised. Yeah, that is Kimo's team. Now let's move on to the manager of the week. I think Kimo is a pretty straightforward transfer, and I think for the manager of the week, Lal from India, I think standing Pat is also like a decent option. The same thing here with Bowen, who's benched in this instance because the starting 11 is pretty strong, assuming Timber is still playing. Could be a case. Wilson is another player that you could bench potentially against Man United away, but we've seen him score in big games in the past, so he is a decent player to start with as well. But my thinking here is sort of like what I said with Kimo, standing pat and then doing Bowen to a cheaper guy in Game Week 26 after he's played Burnley in Game Week 25, and using that to fund Fernandes and Gabriel basically, because again, that is the same thing here. Fernandes and Gabriel are lacking, and that's why we are quite happy as wildcarders, because we can see a lot of managers that don't have the likes of Fernandes and Gabriel and other players in their team already, that we can get some money or get some points. Compared to them, we can get some extra points basically. But the other transfer would be Van Dijk potentially to Chalobah. That's also a decent option to get that Chelsea defensive cover. Sadly for this manager, 0.9 in the bank. That's 0.1 away from doing Van Dijk to Gabriel, which would have been the easiest move in the world if you had the money to do that. So you could do a -4. You could do, like I said, I think actually Bowen is a bit more expensive than Joao Pedro. So speaking of the -4 route, you could do Bowen to Joao Pedro to fund Van Dijk to Gabriel. In that instance, I think the -4 makes more sense to use it to fund like another move that is really a good move. So that could be the third option here to do that. So like knowing what type of manager you are, is that what you would go for as well? Doing a -4 to get Joao Pedro in for Bowen and Gabriel in for Van Dijk?
Yeah, especially if it makes sense in a long-term way where you fix sort of price changes and that as well, and long-term it's whether it's the right move. But again, that's what we need to know about Delap or not, because in my opinion, he's an idiot if he doesn't start Pedro every game now, because Chelsea aren't comfortable. They're not Arsenal in that regards. They're not at a point where they're playing every game as if it's their last, because I mean they wouldn't have fired Enzo Maresca otherwise. It can't be just because he went against the board. It's because he was also a little bit inconsistent towards the end. So I think I would, to be honest.
Yeah, -4 to bring in Gabriel and Joao Pedro.
Yeah. I mean, it's good assets. I mean, of course, Van Dijk it's not like Liverpool have the worst games either, but long term, I think it sort of makes sense and makes up for it because Arsenal have the double game week, and and Chelsea have just really good fixtures that you want to target now.
Yeah, I'd say the issue with that would be to bring in Bruno Fernandes, but you could always do Saka to Fernandes next game week as well, potentially. But that would leave you with only 2 Arsenal players, with Gabriel and Timber, before the double game week in 26, assuming that happens. But
if you downgrade Saka to Bruno Fernandes, that would be enough to make Wilson into Rice.
I don't think so. It's only 0.6, I think, now between Fernandes and Saka. Fernandes has gone up in price quite a lot, and Saka is like down to 10 million again. So I think that would be difficult. And Wilson also, like, in his case, like, he has really good fixtures from game week 27-ish onwards as well. So he is like a long-term hold. You could do Cunha though to Rice as well, but it's also nice to have him for now. So, and the bench is like a bit weak. Like if you get, I mean,
you're on.
I don't know. It's a bit of a difficult one, but yeah, I'd probably just stand pat because I am too confused with what to do really, and I think the team is pretty strong as it is. Sadly, don't have enough for Virgil van Dijk to Gabriel straight up or Cunha to Fernandes straight up. Like those moves are really close, but not enough in terms of money in the bank. But yeah, I could also definitely see, like, if you're a more aggressive manager, you could definitely do the -4 to go Bowen to Joe Pedro and Van Dijk to Gabriel. I would actually consider that quite heavily as well. So yeah, be between that and standing pat, I think, in this case. But yeah, I think it's just a bit difficult to navigate everything with also with the Arsenal thing in mind and wanting to have Saka or at least like a third Arsenal asset on top of having Bruno Fernandes. Not going with Fernandes at all this time of season seems also a bit like silly. So yeah, I don't know. It is a bit of a tough one. But yeah, just gonna have to see what you want to do the manager of the week. And like I said previously, if you guys watching want to be the manager of the week as well, you can join the FPL Scope Mini League with the league code FNPQ83. And if you get the highest score in one particular game week, you'll get featured on the podcast, just like Hmangaihzuala just did. Tried to do the last name there, but sorry if I butchered it, of course. But of course, as always, great to have managers from all around the world join us at the FPL Scope. That's great to see, of course. And I think that's it basically for the podcast. And as always, gonna leave the final word for Kevin. So take it away, Kevin, before we end this podcast.
Haha, Madrid.